Hi, I'm Teresa Huizar, your host of 1 in 10. In today's episode, Learn Your Leadership Superpower, I speak with Irish Burch, longtime leader and mentor of other leaders in the Children's Advocacy Center movement. Now, a whole mythology has grown up around leadership. First of all, that it's glamorous. My friends, it is not. Also, that it requires many self-help books written by other glamorous leaders. It doesn't. And that only a select few can do it. So not true. We're all leaders. But as you will hear in this real talk about leadership, Irish points us to leadership as learning and as service to others. What happens when we lead from the knowledge that we're imperfect? What happens when we lead with a radical candor that spreads the power of information to everyone in the decision? And how does leading with intention drive purpose and meaning across a professional career? You're in for a treat in hearing from one of our most talented and grounded leaders as she talks about her own leadership journey. Please take a listen. Irish, welcome to 1 in 10.
Hi, Teresa. It's great to see you, and thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, I've been looking forward to this conversation, and I'm looking forward even more to having you at Leadership Conference. But I was trying to think, because you and I have talked about leadership before and how we came to the positions we have, but everybody might not know. So I'm just curious, when you think about your own leadership journey, can you just talk a little bit about kind of how you got to this place?
Yes. That is the question of the hour. How did I get here? I've thought a lot about my leadership in the last 2 months, to be perfectly honest. And when I think about it, I can sum it up in one word, and that would be imperfect. Just imperfect leadership. And by that, I mean, I started out, I've been in the child maltreatment my whole entire career. So I started out as a CPS investigator, and I moved into the CAC movement as a forensic interviewer. I don't realize that a lot of people didn't know that information until recently. And so when I became a forensic interviewer, I did the thing that a lot of us do. I got really good at that job. And because I was really good at that job, someone who was my leader at the time thought that maybe this person should lead the people that do this job. And so I moved into leadership very excited, but also extremely naive. Naive in what it took to become a leader. Just because you're great at a role in a particular task doesn't mean that you're great at leading people. So I set out from that time to figure it out. And so one thing led to another. I went from being a program director over the forensic interviewers to into more of an executive role, chief partner relations officer, and ultimately landed myself in a CEO seat of the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center, which is the organization that I started my leadership journey at. And so what a way to start it, and what a way to stop that transition being in that specific role. So it has been truly a journey.
You know, it's so interesting because I think you have been such a mentor to so many in all of those various phases. I was thinking about the Urban Forum in which you announced that you were going to retire from your most current role. And I mean, folks were tearing up because they had really come to rely on your advice and guidance and support and all of those things, which is just touching and a testament to the way that you move through the world and work with folks. But I'm just curious about what has really grounded you as a leader in all of those spaces and places over that time.
It is actually one of the things that you mentioned. It's the people. It's knowing that you're not alone in this work. So everyone hears the saying and everyone believes the saying, and I believe it to be true to a certain extent, that leadership is lonely at the top. But when you are in this space, in our world, in our field of the critical work that we do, mission-driven work, you cannot do that work alone. And when you are in the position to make several life-changing decisions for staff and that impacts clients, you certainly don't want to do that alone. So grounding for me starts with really my faith. I'm a woman of faith. Anybody knows me know I'm a woman of faith. But then also it's the community that I've built around myself and that I've hoped I've been able to pour in back into that community as much as it's poured into me, because you cannot survive this work out here by yourself. You can't.
That's one of the things that I want us to actually talk about, because I agree with that. And I think that it's one of those things where this role, heading up any children's advocacy center or child abuse agency or having a significant role within one, there's a real weight of responsibility that comes with that. That it's not to say other kinds of jobs don't have it. As you say, you're making life-changing decisions regularly. And can you just talk a little bit about how you thought about that as you were doing it up until about 5 minutes ago, when you retired from your role at the Dallas Children's Advocacy Center, but also because I think that the weightiness of that, people also can struggle with turning that off and enjoying their life outside of work. And I'm just interested in kind of how you balance that, especially as leader of one of our very largest children's advocacy centers in the country.
I will tell you, sometimes I did it well and sometimes I didn't, to be perfectly honest. And I think that's the beauty of it. When I think about our world, and I like how you said our world is different. It is different. I don't think a lot of people know this about me, but probably for about 18 months when I was working at CPS, I left, went into the corporate world and quickly came back because I was like, is this what we're talking about at the water coolers? Because no. Children are dying. I'm going to save some lives. And so for me, when I really think about the weight of the work, I say it in this way, is mission work is hard and it's heavy, but it doesn't have to be deadly. And the reality is that is what we're doing every day. We're carrying this leadership under pressure. We have so much pressure. You have to think about the staff. You have to think about raising money. You have to think about the clients. You have to think about the partners. You have this whole ecosystem of all of these different disciplines and different areas that's depending on you and decisions you make. And those things will weigh on you. And it's really about, again, making sure you have that community, but also being very mindful of the fact that the work is hard. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people don't think about. Teresa, I didn't think about it. You come into leadership and you see it from outside and it looks very glamorized. But when you're the one in the middle of the night, knowing that you have to deliver that news tomorrow, that's going to break somebody's heart, that's going to be devastating to people, that stuff stays with you. And those are the things that help you to know that, okay, I gotta be in this position. I have to be able to strategically make decisions based on the information that I have. And I also have to know that sometimes I'll get it right and sometimes I won't. And if I don't get it right and I recognize I didn't get it right, then I apologize for that and I try to do better. I think that's why I describe my leadership as imperfect. I have a spirit of perfection. I have been raised, and I'm pretty sure many of the clinicians looking at this before, I can tell me about your childhood and I'll tell you why you're like that. But I always have a need for every single thing to be perfect and in control in all of these different things. And what I've had to come to the realization is that this world, our ecosystem, it is not going to allow you to be perfect. And that is what is good about it. It is the fact that you have all these variety of disciplines and everyone coming together for this one common goal. And because you have all of the different disciplines, you're going to have chaos. You're going to have conflict. You're going to have confrontation. And it's because you can sit in that space and know that that is going to happen, that it gives you a better chance to address it and to be able to manage it. It is when you want to come to work and think, I'm just going to come to work and everything's going to be great. Or I'm going to come to work and I'm going to deal with this one thing. And when this one thing is over, it's going to get better. I call it the when I fever. When I get through with this project, when I get through with this big task, when I get through with this termination or this layoff, things will get better. It's not. The reality is this is the work. It is what we have to carry, and we carry it well, making sure that we carry it with others and we carry it with responsibility. Carry it with thinking, I might not always get it right, but I'm going to make sure that I make a decision that is human-centered. Everybody wants to treat that as a buzzword, but that really is how we have to lead. And sometimes leading from a human-centered way is the thing that makes you feel more burdened because you're going to think about
That's right.
That you impact. You got to think about the people that you lead that have lives, that things are happening in their lives. And if you come to work thinking, okay, y'all just do the job, yeah, I need you to do the job, but I also need to know that you are human, that you have issues going on in your life. And so I need to make sure that when you do come here, that I'm pouring into you and that I'm supporting you in a way that you know I see you. And although I can't fix your personal stuff, but I'm taking that into consideration when I'm asking you to carry this other weight over here.
As you were talking, I was thinking about a couple of things, which is that, first of all, it is an incredible responsibility. You are not overstating the case about what this job really is, right? Day to day. On the other hand, there's a blessing aspect of it
Yeah.
that I feel very strongly about, which is that I know that no matter what my day is like, I put my head on the pillow at night and I know there's some kid out there who got something that they needed because of this work that's going on from all of us in our respective roles all across the country. And it's not that that's magic, right? That it makes up for everything when you've had a bad day, but you feel a sense of purpose from it that's incredibly satisfying, I think. And, I was talking to someone who I smiled when you talked about your corporate getaway because it was somebody who was kind of in that space right now. And they were saying, oh, I just like, it all just feels so meaningless. And I was like, okay, I mean, you need to volunteer someplace
Mhm.
or something to add that meaning to your life, because I don't know if I would enjoy work at all if I didn't have that sense of
Yeah.
like, this makes a difference, what we're
Yeah.
doing.
I remember looking at my husband, this was probably like the third day after I left DCAC and I was starting my retirement. I looked at him and I'm like, buddy, I don't think this is going to work. He was like, what's wrong? And I said to him, and not in a way of arrogance, because I love how you just put it. It is the gift that we have
Mm,
been giving to
mm,
be able to work in a space where you are helping. I'm not
hmm.
changing your life, but I'm helping you to change your
That's
life.
right.
I'm
That's right.
helping to keep children safer. And I said to him, will I ever do anything impactful again? Will I, and not from again, like, oh, it's about me. It is, I need to help someone. I
Yes.
literally yesterday, Teresa, I reached out to someone. I was like, okay, so put me on the board. I need to help some people. I
I
can't
love
just
it.
help.
You're like, okay, right now I'm raising my
Yeah,
hand.
I'm like, put me on the board. I need to help. I want to
Yeah.
serve. Like, this is what this season is about. It is not about coming home and sitting down. I'm
Mm,
certainly writing every day. I'm
mm,
coaching, I'm speaking, I'm pouring into the people that are out there doing this work every day because I know what it feels like.
yes.
I know the burden of it, but I know the blessing also.
Hmm.
And the problem is we sometimes get so bogged down by the burden, we don't think
Yes.
about the blessing. And my goal is to really help people to remember what a blessing it is to be able to, like you just said, lay your head on a pillow at night and know I made a difference today.
Curious, Irish, if you were talking to an emerging leader today, a young person who you could see they were a bright young thing that's going to do well and whatever they do, and you think to yourself, I wish I had had X as leadership advice. I wish somebody had
Mhm,
told me. I feel like I learned so many of my own leadership lessons the hard way, you know?
mhm.
So what is it that you wish someone had maybe clued you into that you wouldn't have had to learn by doing?
Yeah, I will tell you what I've told my daughter when my daughter followed me into this space, and
Mm,
this is also what I spent my last 48 hours at DCAC meeting with middle management, and that question came up, like,
mm,
what advice would you give me? And I truly would say it in the sense of, Teresa, when we're in this space, it is really making sure as a young professional that
mm,
you understand the weight of the work, that
mm.
you understand the weight of what you're doing and the true value your skills bring to this space
Yes.
so that you can make sure you're pouring into the mission, but the mission also pours back into you. So that
Yes.
way, the healthiest organizations are when both of these things rise together.
Mhm.
Because as young professionals, what I wish someone would have told me is this is what I was doing. I was pouring, pouring, pouring. Like I must serve, 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 serve. I
Yeah.
must take care of all of the things, take care, and not really pay close attention to my own professional development, my professional
Yes.
goals. And as young professionals right now, they really need to understand that because, again, the scale tips this way if the mission is advancing and you are not. But what we also see a lot is sometimes the scale tips this way, whether the employer or the employee is more so focused on what they can do and not serving the mission. It is when both of these things rise together that you will feel so much satisfaction in your career that it will be that thing that helps to sustain you over time. I wish someone would have told me that. No one told me that because we get into this self-martyr space if we're not careful. And that can be dangerous to young professionals and to anyone really.
That is such good advice about thinking about the balancing of those things, because I do think that it's easy to let that get out of whack. And then, as you say, you start feeling like a martyr about it or being disgruntled because of it or whatever, or worse yet, taken advantage of in some way. So, I think that just paying attention to making sure you're a good contributor and also making sure that you're taking advantage of professional development opportunities and not neglecting those, on the path. It's critical. I'm betting by now, as you've been reflecting on your own leadership and your own leadership practice, you have come across in your time some myths about leadership that you're just like, that myth needs to die. That is not true. That is just wrong, wrong, wrong. So I'm curious for you, what is it that you're just like, no?
Oh, let me think. That's a really good question. So leadership myths.
Or even just a hot take on leadership. We're just like, no, that's not how it is.
So, well, this is probably where I'm a little bit different than a lot of other leaders. I think there is a myth in the past or traditional leadership that we hide things from people. And I just don't believe that to be true. I think many of my team members, many of even my peers would say that I'm very transparent in my leadership. I read this book when I was actually working in HR at another advocacy center.
Okay.
I read this book called Powerful by Patty McCord. Patty McCord is the Chief Human Resource Officer from Netflix when Netflix went through that whole change. And one of the things that she says in there, she has a chapter about human-centered leadership. She didn't call it that, but she talks about grown people. She says grown people work here.
I love that.
So,
love it.
and what that taught me is you give people the information that they need in order to make the decision that's best for them. Good news, bad news. You give them the information that they need in order to do that. And I think a lot of times as leaders, now there is certainly a balance. There are certain things that you can't tell people from an HR, from a legal standpoint. And there are certain things that you probably shouldn't tell them. But there are a lot of times where we can provide information for people in order for them to have more clarity around situations. We were extremely transparent about my transition. And I will say at the very beginning of it, one of the things that the board asked me and my response to them, because I put together this full transition plan. This is how we're going to make the announcements. This is what you're going to say, all these different things. And they asked me, what would success look like? And to what I said to them, success would look like me walking out or me making the announcement and business goes back to usual. And that's what happened. We made the announcement. And because we did that, we brought them along every step of the way. We told them everything that was happening. We gave them clarity. We gave them information. And that last day when I walked out, the only person that was having a fit was me. You would have thought I was Teresa,
love it.
You would have thought I was walking out of a funeral. I'm like, don't let me go because I helped build that building and I knew that would be the hardest part for me. So my husband and my daughter met me to walk out the building with me. But do you know what everybody else was doing? They were doing their jobs.
I love that.
Everybody else, it was a normal day for them.
Isn't that great?
Me, being so transparent in this process allowed us to create an environment where people felt safe, where they had the information that they needed. And I think sometimes as leaders, we try to hold our cards too close. Even if we make a mistake, we try to hold our cards too close. And that hurts us in the end, ultimately because it hurts your team.
Because I was watching all the communication that went out externally about your transition and Lori coming and all that. I just thought it was beautifully handled. I have to just say, I just thought it seemed like such a beautiful, warm handoff and then just taking it forward. And that's the best legacy you can have is when it's a smooth, seamless transition in that way. So, well done you on that. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about, you alluded to it a minute ago, the multidisciplinary nature of our work and the fact that that does bring with it community, right? Which is a wonderful thing, that every decision doesn't just rest on you. You've got these colleagues to call on for their best thinking. But it's also true, it's a different kind of leadership when you are working with a whole bunch of people that are not under your direct authority in the same way. And so can you talk a little bit about how you thought about that, how you approach this role in which you're influencing things, but you're not, saying, Mr. Police Chief, I really think what, you need to do next is, this and that. It's very different.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that a lot of people really don't understand the value of it. I think that's what helped me to lead better in the sense of I started out my leadership in this place of, even though I was given the title of being on the forensic interview team, I was also working with the MDT at that time. And that was so new to me. And it was learning to lead through influence is what helped me to be able to lead in this space, because what that does is it ties you to relationships.
Yes.
It ties you to building a foundation of relationships that allow you to trust an individual. So when you get in your MDT modes and you get into these different models, then that level and that foundation of trust is there. So when I need to have the hard conversation with you, when I need to say, hey, help me understand why you didn't file on that case. And we can have a very, even sometimes tense conversation.
Yes.
But the reality is, I know you care, I care. We're fighting for the same goal. So we're able to move forward and keep the work moving forward. So when I think about our MDT model, and anybody, me, anybody knows me, that was my job. I love the MDT, because what we know is truly, in my heart of hearts, I don't say it because I think it to be true. I say it because I know it to be true. When the MDT model is working effectively, then children thrive, period.
True.
Children are able to thrive, and we can't do this work alone. And what we also know is just the sure core of the model is going to breed all the conflict, all the different things.
Yes.
It's Max Lucado who said conflict is inevitable, but combat is optional.
That's right.
So I used to always teach that to my MDT. And it is really that understanding that every single time when you sit in this space, and as I think about the MDT, anytime I had to make a decision, even as a CEO, I had to think of, if I'm going to make this change of toilet tissue that's in the bathroom, how is law enforcement going to respond to this? How is this going to impact CPS? And so you have to constantly have that mind frame of what decisions I make today and how is it going to impact those that are also working within this system and that are dependent on me, because I care about making sure that not only my staff, not only the 125 people I was responsible for, I needed to make sure the 250 plus people in the building had also what they needed. So you lead from a place of thinking, okay, how can I impact this person? How can I make their jobs easier? But that only comes when you have that foundation of trust.
Well, and I think the other thing is, if somebody hasn't come up through the ranks in kind of the way that you're describing, and they might not have a background of working by leading by influence, it can be a real shock to the system, And so I'm curious, you've just gone through a search process and all of that yourself, so you probably have some fresh insights on this. But when you're thinking about, if you were advising a board, for example, okay, you're going to have lots of candidates for the CAC director position. But what are you essentially looking for in leadership quality that's unique to that role? What would you say?
Really, it was what we just talked about. We talked about the tenured experience. We talked about and for me, looking for someone, it was important that we had someone who had experience in the space already.
Yes.
because you can teach someone, but it takes time, and you understand that because the model is
Yes.
so complex. But the primary thing I told them is that they're looking for someone, and I said it exactly this way, that lives, eats, and breathes collaboration.
Mm,
If they don't understand collaboration, and if they think they can come and sit in this seat and make any decision they want and
that's
think that
right.
this is just my house, they will fail
Yes.
because they're going to be rubbing up against friction, and you're not going to be able to continue to build a model that supports the children in the way the families need to be supported. And I told them, you have to have someone that understands every decision they're making impacts someone. You talk about the stuff that rolls down hills. This is the stuff that rolls down hills. When I make a decision, it's going to impact the partners that are housed with me, but it's going to impact the 27 other law enforcement partners
That's
that are
right.
not housed with me. It's going to impact the DAs. It's going to impact medical. It's going to impact all of these different people. And so you have to, when you're sitting and looking for a CEO in our space, collaboration is your first characteristic. And I don't care. Everybody says I play nice in the
Right.
sandbox. That's just not true.
It's like, what's
That's
your actual history with playing nicely in the sandbox, right?
exactly.
Yeah, I was thinking, we're in a hiring process ourselves, and we often joke about the fact that everybody in interviews says that they can work in a fast-paced environment, and we're like, let's talk to you in a year and see how you feel about what fast-paced actually meant. you know?
Exactly. Your fast
So,
pace and my fast pace, two totally different things.
yes, absolutely. So, the other thing, and you mentioned this in building in a capital campaign. I mean, these are monstrous projects to take on, but there are all kinds of systems change and systems transformations. And I'm curious about how you think about approaching that. When what you're not doing is just making a day-to-day decision, but you're making a decision or a series of decisions that is really going to shape differently the way that kids are served or the way that you're interacting with your team partners or the physical plant that you're in or all of those things. How have you approached that over time?
So, in a couple of different ways. One, knowing that I'm not going to have all the answers. I think that is the biggest thing, is really bringing along the people who have the information that I need. The second thing I would tell you is knowing that I'm still not going to have all the answers when I need to make the decision. I think I'm a processor, so I want
Mm,
all of the information. So what I've had to learn is bring in the people who are experts at what they do, but then also know that at the end of the day, I have to keep the train moving, and we're going to have to make decisions based on the information that we have at the time. And then the third thing of that would be being ready to pivot as quickly as possible if we realize that we're going down the wrong way. I think sometimes some people will get in a space and say, okay, well, I made this decision and this is a decision. We have to stick to it. Even when you're like, oh, probably shouldn't have did that. Or we probably need to change that because that's not going as we wanted to. Being ready to pivot and communicating up front. Here's what we're going to do. This is what we're going to try. And then if that doesn't work, then we're going to go back to the drawing board and we're going to readjust. So a lot of over communication during that time, but making sure that I'm doing those three things. That's what's gotten me through that space. Because if you think about it, Teresa, when I came into this position, leading, like you said, one of the largest CACs in
yes.
the world, I had no CEO experience. I was just as shocked as y'all was that I got. I'm like,
Irish. I don't think we were shocked. I think you were the one
I'm like,
shocked.
well, I was like, wait, what? Okay, I'm ready. Let's go. And it really was about, okay, hitting the ground running. Like you said, is a fast pace. You are sprinting.
Yeah,
People can say all day long, this is a marathon. Yeah, it's a long sprinting marathon that
that's
you're going
right.
to be doing. But it was then surrounding myself around people who knew the information that I didn't know, and then being able to move us forward, communicating and pivoting. I've made some great hires. I've made some bad hires. I've made some good policies. I've made some bad policies. And it's being able to pivot when those things aren't working out and then being able to keep moving forward.
There's this sort of self-acceptance about making mistakes and just
Yeah.
moving on from it,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate because I do think people tend to just, you know, really beat themselves up when they
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake or when something doesn't go the way that they expected it to. And I just love this thought where you're just like, just acknowledge it. We're imperfect. We can only do what we do with the information we have. If it goes sideways, we're going to pivot and do something else. We're not going to lock in on that and stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you think that comes from?
Probably being a parent, to be perfectly honest. No one's ever asked me this question, but I actually would think it was from being a parent.
Interesting.
Because what I think we have a tendency to do is be more generous to others than we are to ourselves.
That's right.
And so for me, I always wanted my children to be okay with making mistakes because I wanted them to be able to communicate with me and my husband and be able to say, hey, mom, hey, dad, I messed up. And then we figure it out from there. What I didn't want them to feel was isolated or if we had this such high expectation of perfection that they couldn't mess up. And I think the problem with us is we'll extend grace to others that we won't give to ourselves. When I took this job, I remember we did a lot of assessments. And in my interview process, one of my board members said, so according to your test results, you have a very extreme standard of perfection. And my concern is that you're going to hold others to that same standard. So Teresa, I'd never heard that before. I'd never thought about it. But it really was going into the job, knowing that this was something that I needed to be careful about. And I also didn't always get it right because I started out doing the things and I would have to rein myself back in. But it was intentionality around saying, okay, I'm not getting this right. I'm expecting them to do something from a perfect standpoint, and then they're going to hide the thing from me, or they're not going to feel like they can tell me. So let me now extend this grace to you to say, you can do it however you need to. If you mess up, let's figure it out together. And then it made me start to internalize that for myself because I am that person that when I first started, oh my gosh, and this was in leadership, period. I did not want to make mistakes. My predecessor knows I would march into his office and be like, oh God, I just messed this up. The world is falling apart. And he would be like, get it together.
You're fine.
Yeah, but we do it all the time. We really want to do everything right, but being I don't like to say being a great leader. Being a better leader is when you understand and recognize that you are an imperfect leader. Nobody is perfect. And the sooner you can sit in that space and give yourself the grace that you extend to others, the more empowering it will be for you as a leader.
Okay, I want to talk about this great leader thing because, speaking of myths, I think that, you know what I mean? You know where I'm headed with this. I do think there is this myth that there are these like magical, iconic leaders out there who never make any mistakes. And then there's the rest of us, And so how do you think about that? Because I do feel like the media plays into this. They select some small handful of people and they make whatever their leadership processes are sound very magical. And I think it can be daunting to young leaders, especially because I think, how could I ever live up to that? So tell me a little bit about that, because the way you reacted to that great leader thing made me think that maybe you have a little bit of skepticism about great leaders as well.
Yeah. I think, and here's the thing, I think if you sit across from many of those leaders personally, they would tell you they're not a great leader.
Right.
It is what society portrays as great leadership that we then impart and put on ourselves. We try to hold this mantle of everything is so perfect and everything is so great and we must be this stoic person. But at the end of the day, for me, I just don't think there is a thing. And like you said, talking about milk, I don't think there is a thing as great leadership. I think, and if it is, a great leader is someone who intentionally is trying to make sure that they are getting better on a daily basis. And by that, it means that they acknowledge the great and they acknowledge the bad. And that they figure it out and they have an intentionality about growing. You know what? That's what a great leader is. Someone who wants to grow. But again, I don't even think there's a such thing. Like, It's
I
such
know.
a stigma because I
It's
think that's
true.
the thing that stresses so many other leaders out because
Yes.
they're like, how do I live up to that? And that's why I think it's important that people like you and people like me, like we sit in that space and say, hey, I made some bad calls.
Yes.
Hey, I made some bad hires. I just did some things that I probably should have thought about. I wish I would have said that differently.
Yep.
Like, I wish I would have reacted in this way differently. It is when we can sit in that space and normalize that this is what leadership is. And it's not staying there. It's saying, hey, I did this thing, but my goal is to get better. My
Right.
goal is to lead well and to lead better than what I'm doing. So here's what I'm doing to change that. You can't just say, hey, I did this thing and I'm done. And you continue to do that thing. You got to say, I did this thing over here. Here's what I did to correct it.
Mhm.
And here's what I'm going to try to do differently next time. It is when we are that vulnerable that I think that the younger leaders will see and say, okay, this is not as daunting as I thought it could be. I'm not in this space where I have to know all the answers. I have
Right.
to be perfect. I can't make mistakes. This is a place where I am still human. And I need you to be more human in that leadership position than you are in any other role. You need to be so human because again, not only are you helping to carry the mantle of the mission, but you're helping to carry the mantle of the people that are
Mm.
leaning on you and then looking to you for guidance and for response and for all of the different things that they need in order to be more effective at their job. You have to think about it from both of those places and you need to be as human as possible in order to do that.
Well, and I think that it keeps people from thinking that they can be leaders if the bar is perfection. I
Exactly.
think especially anybody that's humble or has
Yes.
any humility at all, they think, oh, I could never, fill in
Hmm.
the blank. But you're like, actually, that humility will serve you well in this
Well,
role
hmm
because it keeps you, I hate to use the word grounded again, but it keeps you grounded about the fact that every decision you make won't be the most brilliant one you've ever made. That there are, as you say, hires that you're like, how did I ever do that? Or decisions, how did I ever decide that was a good idea to try that? Or,
hmm
whatever, because it's a process of learning. And I think if young and emerging leaders really knew that it is this journey and it's not some endpoint destination that you're going to arrive at, it might feel easier to see oneself as a leader.
Exactly. Exactly. Being a leader that is intentional about growth is a leader that'll go far. Even after 30 years in the space, 20 years in leadership, I'm still literally reading. I'm rereading Radical
Yes.
Candor right now. Like I'm still
Learning.
learning. I just recommended Powerful to somebody. Actually, I should probably get some money from her because I recommend it so much. But it is about like there's never a stop to it. And if you understand there's never a stop to it, then like you said, it won't be so intimidating to start.
That's right. When you think about our field and you think about leadership within it, let's imagine that we fast forward 10 years from now. What are you hoping
Mhm.
that you see? Now, maybe seeing it from a beach on Hawaii or something, but what are you hoping that you see?
My gosh, from this space, oh, I wish I have so many dreams for the CAC space, and that
Mm.
may sound weird because it's like, well, you just left the CAC
No,
space,
no.
but I have so many dreams from this understanding of first for the world to understand, because we're still fighting the fight, Teresa, of
Sure.
really ensuring that the community understands that the biggest threat is in the household at times. It's
That's
someone
right.
that the child knows and loves. And I know a lot of people don't want to believe that, but for me, just looking at this on a worldwide scale is that the world rallies around their CACs, that every community member
Mm,
knows and understands and supports the fact that there is a CAC in their area
mm.
that's serving these children and that they're actively getting involved. I feel like when you talk about domestic violence, I feel like it has a higher weight
Oh,
internationally where people want to get involved sometimes with that. And I feel like sometimes people shy away
Yeah.
from child abuse because you don't want to think that it happens. I need us to be just as high up on
Uh-huh.
that mantle and have people rallying around this cause like the same way that they do any other cause, and actually even more. My goal is to see you on the Today Show one day, like seriously, see you on the Today Show talking about this issue around the world, and for people to know that actually I can do something about it.
Uh,
I don't have to be afraid. I think we've come light years from when I was a forensic interviewer, when I first started in this space. And I also am excited about where we're headed in this next 10 years.
so now let's speak about the future for you. What is next for you, aside from coming to our leadership conference and doing a beautiful job? And I see that others have followed our lead, or maybe it's the other way around. We followed their lead, but I see that you're speaking more these
No,
days.
you're the
So
first. Yes, you were the first to come for me. And then I have I probably have about 6 others right
yeah,
now.
wonderful.
I, I will say it is what my husband and I talked about, because we prayed about this. We prayed about this a long time before we made the announcement and the final decision. And we knew it wasn't just walking away from this space. It was more so about moving towards this next season. And the next season allows me to do exactly this. It is like it burdens my heart and my soul when I know someone is tired, when I know someone is on the brink of giving up and walking away from this work. Sometimes it's time for people, they get in different seasons of life. But when I think about the younger generation coming in, we people are concerned about AI and AI taking away jobs. AI can't take away our jobs, but yet we can see the decline of people majoring in social services. So how can I bring an excitement and an understanding that these roles have so much value, and you can literally help to change the lives? You can change the trajectory of someone's future when you're sitting in all of the seats, not just the leadership seats, but every single seat that it takes in our world. And so for me, it is, what can I do? What is my part that I can do in order to, one, pour into the person that's doing the work, and then also just being a woman and being even a woman of color? How can I also ensure that I'm helping these leaders, any leader, under pressure? Because this is going to be different. Corporate, you have profits. We have lives we're concerned about.
That's
So
right.
how do I help you manage that pressure in a way that this job doesn't burn you out? That you don't say, you know what? This is too high risk for me. I don't want anything to do with it. I need you to be here, and I need you to be equipped. And so in this next season, it is really figuring out, how can I go about helping people to just the sustainability, just stay in the work, and not only stay in the work, but I need you to thrive in the work.
You know, when you were saying that, that led me to another question. And Irish, I could just talk to you all day, but I do have a couple of more questions. And the first one was just based on what we were just talking about. Someone asked me this question a while back, and I was sort of reflecting on it. For folks who have been in the work for a while, there is kind of, I feel like, in sort of CAC and child abuse intervention in general, there are those people who bounce out of it very early. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's this group of people who make a career out of it. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like we've never paid enough attention to those who do. They're able to be in it a long time and to be healthy in it. What is it that makes that possible? And I'm curious, as you've reflected on your own career, where you did this work as a CPS investigator, forensic interviewer, like worked your way, had whole career in this stressful, as you say, work. What do you think was critical to keeping you in the work, but not just in the work and healthy in the work?
Yeah. I think a couple of things. One, I knew very early on that child abuse was my thing. I knew it. So as a person, my core belief is every child should be safe in their homes. The
Mm,
reality is they're not. And
mm,
that's why our work exists. And so I came into the space, even as a CPS worker, believing that. So that's what got me in the space. So I think that's critical, is for someone, your long-term sustainability starts with making sure you're aligned with something. that is
Yes.
true to your belief. So for some people, it's homelessness. For some people, it's domestic violence. For some people, it's animals. So it's really making sure that you're aligned to that. Then the second thing I would say is really making sure that I then understood the value that I brought. So I knew
Mm,
my superpower and I aligned my superpower with the needs of the organization. And because I was able to do that in a way that was more strategic, that helped me feel fulfilled. I got to
yes.
go to work every day and do the thing that I really enjoyed doing. And I could
Mm,
see the impact that I was making. So I think what happens is sometimes people it cut it a little bit shorter because one, they got into the space and they're like, no, I was
right.
following somebody else and this is not my thing. But then
Yes.
also you have people that get into the space and they know, okay, this is where I belong and this is where I'm going to root myself in. And then I'm just going to grow from there. And you got to make sure that you're honest with yourself. I applaud the people that come and say, not for me. I remember many of forensic interviewers. I remember many of partners that have came through. Detectives got put into the child abuse. It
Mm,
was like, I want out. Like I applaud those people
that's
for
right.
knowing that this is not the thing that's going to continue to pour into me and that I can pour into effectively. Because the worst thing you want is someone on the vine that has died,
Yes.
that
So true.
still that is, and I know that's a morbid way to say it, but is on the vine, but they're not contributing. And
Right.
it has sucked the life out of them. We've all seen it. You
Yes.
want people that know that this is their thing. And when you know that this is your thing, and it's not even about passion, it's more about belief. What
Hmm.
is the thing that keeps you up at night? Child abuse has always kept me up at night. I'm going to tell a little bit more about why that is also a thing for me
Yeah.
at the conference,
Yeah.
but child abuse has always been my thing. That's what's kept me here. Now, I will say to you, Teresa, I haven't always done it in a healthy way. When I was over our partners, the chief partner relations officer, I was responsible for facilitating all of our child deaths,
Oh, goodness.
child fatalities. And so we would have our meeting with the detectives, the ME. He would have the autopsy photos up and blah, blah, blah. And I will never forget. I was going through this phase and I didn't even know what was wrong. And the sergeant, his name was Reggie, Sergeant Matthews, sent me a text and said, how are you eating your lunch? While we're looking at autopsy photos of this baby on the screen. And I was like, oh, well, cause I got to eat in the moment. And then I
Yeah.
will tell you, it hit me like a ton of bricks when
Yeah.
I got home. And I'm like, so yeah, I shouldn't have been able to do that. And I realized that I myself was going through a burnout phase.
Yeah.
Be
Interesting.
very intentional about, okay, so where am I at? What are we going to do? And how
Mm,
do we move forward? So it is, and having someone around you
yes.
that close enough to you to say, I see something is wrong.
It's
And we
so
need, but
interesting.
you have to have that community of people. But I was sitting there eating a lunch, eating a salad. And it just jarred me back into reality. So I haven't always done it in a great way. I think also that's a part of it. There will be a phase in your career where you might feel a little bit more burned out. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Has the light completely gone out? Is the light just gone? Or is the light just a little bit dim? And you just need to just fire it back up. Sometimes that requires rest. Sometimes that requires having something outside of a job. That's one mistake I will tell you I made when
Mm,
I took on the CEO role. When I took on the president and CEO role, everything came about this position. For the
mm,
past 5 years, nothing else mattered. I took care of my family. I was there physically, but many of my families will tell you I was not there mentally. And what I realized is that I just stopped doing the things that I enjoy. I love reading. I
yeah.
love working out. I stopped doing all of those things. Teresa, I gained 25 pounds in my last year at DCAC.
That
Nobody
is
knows that.
stress. That is stress.
It's stress and
Yeah.
menopause. It's stress and menopause.
Too. That
Those
too.
two things. But it was because I stopped once I took on the job, I used to work out all the time and I just stopped because I was initially at the very beginning in this space of, okay, when I get this thing done, when I finish
Right.
this, when I finish this, I got to go ahead and start early. And so that's what I would tell young leaders, seasoned leaders. Make sure you have that other thing that you love. Because the work is going to be never ending.
That's
It's
right.
not going
That's
to
right.
stop. Make sure you have that thing that you love. And although I gained the weight in this last year, that was due to menopause. But when I realized this and I knew I was going to retire, I started shifting like 2.5 years ago to go back and say, well, okay, what are the things that I love? What are the things that I want to do? Because you'll leave or you will separate from this and your whole identity will be all wrapped up in to this job. And if you don't have something else, you'll find yourself back in the workplace because you're trying to figure out like, who am I? Who am I
Right.
without this title? And leaving the title behind was easier than stripping away the identity. This is you're looking at 33, 34 years
Right.
in this space. It's all that I've ever done. And so I wake up and I'm like, okay, so who am I if I'm not doing this thing? What does this new me look like? Who am I becoming? But it is making sure that while you're in that space, you still have the things that bring you joy. The activities, the creativeness, you have to have that because those are the things that will attribute and lead to more burnout quicker because you're only doing this one thing over here and you're not doing anything that you love. It's just pouring with nothing else in return.
Irish, as you were talking, I was thinking, 2025 was a year where I was like, good riddance to bad rubbish, 2025, because it was just like constant change, constant turmoil, constant chaos. And it got near the holidays, and I'm a huge holiday person. I'm just like a nut job about the holidays normally. And I wasn't really feeling it, but I just thought, I'm going to push through because I've got to be a human first. It cannot just be crisis management. It also has to be sending my elderly relatives their Christmas card, which they look forward to, making the phone calls I need to make, decorating the tree, like all the things. And
Mhm.
I really believe what you're saying about that's vital to your own health and ability to continue is that
Mhm.
you realize that these other things are frankly what allow you to keep going and dealing with the daily chaos and all of
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Well, Irish, is there
Well,
anything else that I should have asked you and didn't, or anything else you wanted to make sure we talked about today?
I just am so appreciative of this work. Although I'm not seeing it on a day-to-day basis, just to be able to cheer you all on from afar is just the biggest honor for me right now. It is knowing that this CAC model is what it is because of the network that we have, the network that you've built and the example that you set for us, NCA sets for us. I'm just internally grateful. I wouldn't be here where I am today without the community of all of the CACs, of all of the work that you've done. Like no one CAC could have gotten to where they are today without the community efforts that everyone has put in to get us here. And so I'm just grateful for that. And I wouldn't, in the words of Maya Angelou, I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now.
Well, Irish, we're not letting you go very far, and I will personally see you very soon at Leadership Conference.
Yeah.
We're grateful for your leadership. I'm grateful for your candor and honesty about what this leadership journey actually is, and I know it is a blessing to all those who are going to hear it. So thank you so much, and come back anytime.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us on 1 in 10. If you like this episode, please like and subscribe. And for more information about this or any of our other episodes, please visit our podcast website at 1in10podcast.org.